All right, we're getting started with day two of Innovation Week, and we're going to kick it off with Mercedes Soria, who's our EVP, Chief Intelligence Officer, and newly appointed CISO. We're going to talk about AI and cybersecurity. I think part of the thing I want to do with Innovation Week is for some of our investors and folks on Wall Street to get to know a little bit more about the team. So we're going to do a little bit of that today before we dive into all things AI at Knightscope. So we're going to start with some maybe the Wayback Machine and try to get Mercedes to explain what is going on here and maybe introduce yourself and a little bit of your background for the audience.
Hi, everybody. Mercedes Soria here. So I have a background in software engineering. I did a master's and a bachelor's in computer science, and then I did an MBA. And I'm very, very much focused on software. But as you can see here, there was a time a long time ago when we just needed to build machines and we didn't have enough people to do it. So it was an all hands on deck. Everybody in the company is building machines this weekend, and that's what we did. So I was trying to put together a wheel. Not sure how it turned out, but I tried.
So the software person's working on hardware stuff, and that's I think a good example of there's no such thing as not my job here, and the whole team pretty much put everything aside to go build the first 7 machines. So that we can get going. This was a long time ago, maybe I want to say 2014.
Yeah, and still until this day, that happens. We still have people who, they're software people putting hardware together, hardware people learning how to do software. So that's one of the good things that we have kept in the company, at least in my opinion, from the beginning of the company. I think is a good thing.
I think you're a great example, and there's a bunch of teammates that are the same way. I call them the jump on the grenade people. There's a huge problem, don't know how to solve it, not my expertise, but we're gonna go fix it. And I think you've been truly a part of that for the last almost 11 years. So I wanted to also publicly thank you for all the crazy efforts and all-nighters and work to get us to this point. But what's going on here? You want to read that out loud?
Yeah, so this was in 2017, and there's an organization called Anita B. The goal of this organization is to help women to become part of the STEM field. It's very well known, not only in the US, but around the world, that the technology field is male dominated. So one of my goals in life is to ensure that women have the same opportunities as men in the technology sector. And I was awarded the Leadership Award by Anita B organization. I think it's 98 countries that are members of that organization. And the award is called the Grace Hopper Celebration Award. So I got to speak in front of about 20,000 people, and they didn't tell me until I got there. I thought it was gonna be maybe a couple hundred or maybe 300, and then you get there and see all these chairs, and you're speaking in front of 20,000 people, and they asked us to answer one simple question, which is, what do you do? And that was the answer that I had there. I said, I'm a crime fighter and I develop technology that saves people's lives. That has been the goal at Knightscope, and it continues to be the goal up until today.
And how busy you are, you've been spending a lot of time mentoring women. I think even speaking on behalf of the U.S. State Department.
Yeah, so one of my goals is when I started in the technology field, it was very difficult to find a mentor, or it was very difficult to find someone who looked like me, who was in a higher position. So I decided at that point that I would dedicate my career to help other women get to higher positions in tech. So I still mentor people until today. You can go to my LinkedIn profile. I have a link to schedule one-on-ones with me. And I have mentored women in pretty much every company that I have been at, and I continue to do so. My goal is to have more women empowerment and participation in the technology sector.
Very cool. So then what?
That has
go ahead.
led. Go back.
Go back?
Yeah. That has led to me working with the State Department in some of their initiatives like the Tech Women program, in which we executives from the United States mentor women from around the world and to solve a problem that is local to their countries with technology. So I've worked with countries like Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, and others. And also I am working with the State Department as a speaker for the State Department. I speak on topics as AI and pretty soon also cybersecurity around the world. I've been to Canada, been to Ecuador, been to Mexico, and I speak about all things technology and artificial intelligence.
Very cool. Very cool. So that brings me to, because you have all this spare time, what all is going on here?
Oh, well, I have a hobby. I'm an engineer who likes to dance. So I am a competitive ballroom dancer. I have obtained 2 United States championships in the past. And then I took a break of about 15 years from dancing to work at Knightscope. And recently now just getting back to it. So the national championship is in September. And I'm working hard with my partner that you see there to see if we can get a 3rd US championship.
And did I remember this right? You were ranked 7th in the world at some point?
Yeah, the year before I stopped dancing, I was 7th in the world and ballroom dancing on the rhythm section. So
a little bit competitive.
Yeah, it happens.
So now the worlds collided. What happened here?
So there was a recent competition that I went to. So this is after the video that you just saw. It's all sparkles and things sparkly when you're dancing in the ballroom. And then when you're done with your competition, you change. And this is the last competition I went to was at the M Resort in Las Vegas. And we have a robot actually deployed there. So I just had to get a picture with it. And this is the combination of my 2 worlds, my working world and my hobby ballroom dancing world, right after I had won the competition that I just went to.
Well, congratulations, and your worlds literally collided there. So that's very cool to see. So
yeah, of all places where the competition could have been, there's so many hotels in Las Vegas. Of all the places, you had to be at the one where the competition was.
I keep saying robots will be everywhere, so they're going to be at every competition you're going to have.
That's awesome. Yes.
The last 3 years have been a bit daunting. You've put in a significant amount of work to get Knightscope through the, as I often say, nightmare cybersecurity review process. Sponsor there is the Department of Veterans Affairs, and we finally got the ATO, or Authority to Operate, got the machine built as you see here, and that was you and a number of key people on the team that I'll say literally forced this to happen. You want to give a little insight to the audience as to what the process was like, what we needed to go through, what you've learned?
Sure. So a lot of people are familiar with certifications like the ISO 2700 or the SOC2 certifications. And those are kind of accounting type of certifications where somebody comes and takes a look at what you're doing. They do an audit of your systems, of your processes, of how your company is run. And they basically say, yeah, you're doing everything right. Here you go. You have an SOC2 certification. But we at Knightscope never do everything the easy way. So we decided to go for something a little bit more rigorous than an SOC2 certification, which is called FedRAMP. which is the federal certification for cybersecurity that you need to obtain to be able to do business with the government of the United States. So you need a sponsor for that, and our sponsor was the Veteran Affairs Hospitals. It was a process that took about 3 years, and the big difference between an SOC 2 or a ISO 2700 certifications is there's a massive emphasis in supply chain for the government, especially if you have a company that does software and hardware like we do, because they want to make sure that every single part that you might have made by a contract manufacturer, every single camera that might be coming from another country, all of those things are not allowed. Everything has to be made in the United States, which is something that we are very, very much proud at Knightscope from the beginning of our company. So there's a big emphasis on evaluating not only the company, Knightscope as a whole, and our processes and the way that we operate on a daily basis. How do we develop code? How do we test things? But also there's a massive emphasis in our vendors. So the same security reviews have to be passed by the vendors that provide any type of hardware or software that touches any of the government data. So there's a yearly assessment that we have to pay a separate company that they come and we give them a robot, and we don't give them any tools, we don't give them any software. They come in and we give them a robot and say, hey, see if you can break into it. And a funny fact is that we've done this twice already, and both times the penetration tester could not get into the robot physically.
The white hat hacker needed help to hack.
Couldn't get in. Yeah, so that was win number one, which was awesome. And then, but you have to finish the test, obviously. So we were able to open the robot for them, and they started connecting all of their wires, their testing equipment, their computers, and to try to get at the actual data that is stored in the hard drives of the computers inside of the robot. And the 2 times that it's happened, they haven't been able to do so. So we can confidently say that our robot is pretty safe. Now, there's also a component in our technology, which is the cloud solution, which is where the robot sends all the data it collects to. So it sends video, it sends location, it sends the GPS coordinates, all of that gets sent to a cloud solution that lives in AWS. And that is where our customers go to see any information that has been captured by the robot. So we have to pass the same type of tests on that cloud solution. So we gave a URL or an address for a browser to a white hat hacker. And we told them, here you go, this is our main page, see if you can get in. And the same result, they weren't able to get in. So we had to give them an authenticated login so they can get in and see what will happen if I'm a regular user. Can I escalate my privileges? Can I go into a different user's account, or can I see the data from a different client of Knightscope? So it's not been completely impossible. There's been some findings that they've had, but also the government does a classification of these findings. Their severities are priority 1, they're high, medium, lows. And for the 2 times that we've had this happen, we've only had mediums and lows, which requires to be resolved in about 90 and 180 days. Because that's one of the things that also the government tells you is if you have a high finding, you have 30 days to fix it. If you have a medium finding, you got 90 days. And if it's something low, then you have 180 days, but you have to remediate all of that. And there's a monthly review that you have to go through with the government organization to tell them, okay, we had these findings last week or last month, and we've been able to fix this, and this is where we are with the rest. So it's a very rigorous program, and there's a lot of continuous monitoring that you have to satisfy to be able to get that certification. So it took us about 3 years to get it. And it just requires more people and more time to keep it running so we can continue to do business with the government.
I'll confess it was a lonely place to keep pushing on this for this amount of time, this amount of expenditure, resource, etc. Because it was like, can we get our foot in the door into the federal sector? Because I believe that opens up literally billions of dollars to our TAM, or total addressable market. Um, but the first couple of years were really rough, and I think I got more and more comfortable as you, Mercedes, and the team have been dealing with private sector clients. I think that's one big change that we've started seeing is, okay, the federal government levels are here to here, somewhere there, and the private sector was either no requirements or starting to add requirements. And little by little, as we've dealt with larger law enforcement agencies, healthcare facilities, retailers, financial institutions, you start getting really close to what the federal side was looking for, and frankly is now just a basic cost of doing business, right?
Yeah, and also now there's something called a security questionnaire that I'm not sure people listening are familiar with, but organizations like your Targets, your Walmarts, just like large organizations, will send a security survey to a potential vendor, which we would be, and they ask you anything from, hey, do you have secure coding standards? Hey, do you train your developers so they can code secure applications? Do you test your vendors' operating procedures to see if there's any emergency that could happen? Would they be able to respond on time? It covers all those things. And what we find out is that before we had this authority to operate from the government, there was a lot of things that we were just basically saying, no, we don't do that. But the more we started working on the ATO, the more we started moving some of the processes that the government was asking for to our commercial environment. So now, in the end, it's going to happen that we'll end up with a very, very extremely secure environment for the government, and even in a security environment that is kind of close to it for regular customers. If you look at it, we started our cybersecurity team about 6 years ago in 2018. And it was interesting, nobody was really asking for it. We started it because we thought we needed it. But now in the last 5 years or so, clients just keep sending us this security service. There's some that have 10 questions in it. And there's some, there was one I answered a few months ago, for a couple of years ago, that had 2,800 questions. So security is becoming top of mind for many organizations now, starting with the government.
And I think one other question that we've gotten from investors is, a little bit of insight on, now what happens in the federal space. So we've got this authority to operate with the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, and then other agencies and departments can look at what the VA did and accept it as is, or say, hey, we accept a majority of that, but we at our XYZ department want you to do 1, 2, 3 things more. And then there's for DoD related stuff a significant step up from that. But I think as one of our teammates, Henyu Tan, who helped get this over the finish line, told me, I said, we've got our foot in the door. It's like, we didn't get our foot in the door. We got the whole body is in the door. We're moving forward, which is it was awesome to see that passion for what we've done and what you guys have done, basically.
Yeah, we worked on it so hard, and it kept getting delayed and delayed because the government has used their timelines, right? We had to. There was many times in which we were waiting on the government to provide things, and it was the end of last year. It was the last day of work. I think it was the 23rd of December, and the project manager that had been with us for 3 years, she calls me up and she's like, "You won't believe this." And I said, "What is it?" She's like, "You got the ATO." So we didn't know what to do. I mean, I literally think I sat and cried. It was the best Christmas present that we ever had. So it was awesome.
It's literally a couple of days before Christmas.
Yeah, I think it wasn't announced until January, but she called me on the 23rd. It was like, wow. So she's really awesome. She worked with us really close for 3 years. It took us that long.
And it's surreal, but you and the team have a lot to be proud of, because this is a daunting amount of work. And then there's the new abbreviation CONMON. Now going forward, you got a significant amount of workload to maintain the ATO. This is not a get it and forget about it.
Yeah, and also the government adds modules every year. So, for example, as of last September, we didn't have supply chain as a module that they were going to be testing on, and they added it. So there's updates that get made to the packages, and we have to follow that as well. So continuous monitoring gets reviewed monthly, and every time there's a new area that the government decides is important to be certified in, we have to go and meet those certifications as well. We have to do a gap analysis in how we're doing in supply chain, and then figure out what we need to fix to meet the requirements that the government just set.
Do you remember how many companies have actually gotten through the FedRAMP process?
Yes, 346 as of right now. There's 346 companies that are allowed to sell to the government, which is not that many, but if you think about it, when we first started this process, the VA showed us the flow chart that said these are the steps and this is how long each step takes. And it said it could be anywhere between 2 to 3 years. And I'm like, no way, impossible. And yeah, sure it was. It was about 7 days before the 3rd year anniversary.
Well, you and Henyu and the entire team set up Knightscope for a very, very bright future. It's going to be a lot of work, but thank you for getting this done, because you literally changed the trajectory for Knightscope, and I believe long-term shareholder value creation is going to be significant. Alrighty, so let's switch over to all things AI that's going crazy all over the media. And given the amount of questions that we've gotten, I think one of the things that would be most valuable for some of our investors is for us to talk a little bit about AI, but not in generalities. I think a lot of people are getting confused as to what AI is, what it can do, how could it be applied, and we still get this question of, hey, when's Knightscope going to use AI? So I thought to invite you, Mercedes, here to help me explain this to the audience of what we actually do today that requires AI and machine learning, and then a whole host of opportunities that are coming for the future. And I think to kick it off, I think our long-term objective of making the U.S. the safest country in the world is going to require at least putting 1 million security robots and public safety robots across the country. But they've got to be able to be really intelligent and do 100 times more than a human can ever do. And I think with this new generation of AI capabilities, we literally will get them to be able to see, feel, hear, smell, and speak. But with that context, wanted to walk through the left-hand side of this single slide. We're not going to PowerPoint you to death, and just walk through today, how do we use AI and machine learning to operate across the country fully autonomously.
Yeah, and I promise not to geek out. I'll make it very easy to understand.
No, go for it. Geek out if you want.
There's investors in the audience, right?
We got we have investors that love to geek out, love technology, love robots and autonomy and AI and everything. We've got investors that, big time patriots and really worried about public safety. And then we've got investors that are just looking for that, significant financial returns. But we've got people from all walks of life. So just be yourself and go on and geek out.
Yeah, so today, what do we do with artificial intelligence? So we use it in autonomous navigation and autonomous recharging. And what we do is we have a bunch of sensors like the LiDAR, the GPS, or ultrasonic sensors. AI does a combination of all of the outputs of those sensors and determines what is the best way for the machine to navigate. Where should it go? Does it have any obstacles around it? What is the best way to get to the next point in its path? So that is all controlled by algorithms. We also do autonomous charging, which is not only determining what is the most efficient and shortest path to get to that charger, but also determining, hey, is it time for me to charge? Should I charge? And do I need to calculate the time that I will need to charge? So those things are in place today. Those are things that have been working since the company started. A lot of people don't associate navigation and engine charging for autonomous vehicles with AI, but believe me, there's algorithms there that are doing the work for those sensors outputs to be put together and
I
decisions to
often,
be made.
exactly. I often tease a lot of folks who are like, well, when are you going to use the AI? And I'm like, you think Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble are inside the machine kind of driving them around? There's nobody in there. And these machines are operating in highly dynamic outdoor and indoor environments and having to plan and replan. So taking all that LiDAR, sonar, IMU, wheel encoders, and then a bunch of crazy software for it to be able to do that is, the beginnings and basics of how Knightscope has been able to operate, again, 24/7 across the country. I think in every time zone for now, nearly 3 million hours. So this is a very important point that Wall Street needs to understand. This is the practical application of AI in the real world, generating millions of dollars of revenue and having operated millions of hours out in the field. Not a science fair project, not a demo, not a test. And so I think that's the beginnings of a foundation that we can build upon. So,
And one of the things that sometimes people don't realize is a lot of people think that determining where to move is difficult enough to determine if you can move or you should move. But on top of that, you have to add the layer of what is the most efficient way to get there and what is the safest way to get there. And that takes a lot of compute. Sometimes people don't associate with machine learning algorithms.
remember the funny one was the ping pong problem at the mall, I think, where, if you had a dumb algorithm basically and you went down this part of the hallway and, oh, too many people, let me go back. Okay, let me go down this hallway. Oh, too many people, let me go back. And if you keep doing this, your client's going to call you and go, what is wrong with your robot? So you got to be able to like go down here, maybe pause, slow down, maybe pardon me, and get people out of the way, creep along and try to replan so that you don't end up with this kind of ping pong problem. And that requires some level of intelligence for these machines to be able to do that, and no humans there remote controlling it.
Yeah, but one thing that we've seen change, and we've seen change in the whole robotics industry, and a lot of people here in Silicon Valley call us the OGs of security robots here, which I didn't know until we went to a meeting about a year ago, and they're like, "Oh, Knightscope, you guys are the OGs of security robots." So one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that as people see robots more often and in more locations, and honestly, thanks to all the education the Knightscope has done, they now, instead of being worried about, oh, what is that robot doing here? Is it going to harm me? What is it going to do? Now they see it and it's like a normal thing. I mean, you can go to, when we first deployed to a mall, people were around the robot and they didn't know what it was. They started to push buttons, they started to put fingers in the camera and things like that. And all of that has gone away. Of course, it's taken 10 years, but the acceptance of those robots now and people knowing that they're there for their safety is something that literally Knightscope has driven. And it's something that now exists for other companies to take advantage of.
Yep. It's been a long, windy road, but we got it here. You want to switch over to
how
do you detect a person?
Let's talk about detections. So we have people detection, we detect faces, we detect license plates. And all of this is information that we send over to our cloud solution so our clients can see it. So for people detection, I will tell you something that happened to us a while ago. So for you to be able to train an algorithm, basically machine learning means I'm going to tell the computer what to look for in these type of images. So I'm going to show it 1,000 images of a cat and hoping that it learns what a cat looks like. So when I present a new image, it can tell me, is it a cat or is it not a cat? So for that, you have to find those 1,000 images of a cat to even tell the algorithm what to look for. So at the beginning, when we tried to do people detection, there just wasn't that much data out there. I mean, this is 6-7 years ago. Now there's the TechNet and many other data sets that you can use that have already been labeled. But we had to do it back then ourselves. So one of our employees created a phone app where
I forgot about this.
Yeah, so the way that we do this, all of the detections is you have video that is coming through whatever rate it comes through, but we have to do it by frame. So we take a frame from that video and we say, okay, this looks like a person, yes or not, yes. This looks like a face, yes, no, yes. So all of those yes or no's have to be done by a person, which is called the labeler. So that labeling work is usually what takes the longest for training an algorithm. It's not inference, which means the algorithm determining if it's true or not that there's a person in this image. It's the training of those algorithms that take the longest. So we at the beginning had to do our own training, and we had a competition going on that who can do the most labeled images with that Android and iOS app. And I took the win, by the way. I labeled 100,000 images in a weekend. So we had to do it ourselves. Now you can purchase that. Now you can go to places like Thailand and you can pay 1 cent for every frame that is labeled. But back then we had to do it ourselves, and we've now have better algorithms. We have better label sets, more data sets that we can use. So that has helped us increase our confidence in how our algorithms are doing, and they become more accurate with time.
I had completely forgotten about that crazy app you guys made. You're sitting there, click.
Yeah, we did it. It's another thing that it's just a theme at Knightscope. Everybody in the company got the app and we all did it. Even the executives, they might not have done 100,000 images, but they did 20,000, 15,000, and that helps. Yep. So it's just a theme that we all do whatever needs to get done. So now for facial recognition, we do have our own pipeline, but we do also use Amazon recognition, which has been improved. It's got some issues in the past with facial recognition, but it has been improved greatly, so we continue to use it. For automatic license plate detection, it's a little bit more difficult because you have to train the algorithm to look for, first of all, a box, because that at the end of the day, a license plate is just a white box. So once you determine there's a white box in this image, then you have to use what's called OCR, which is optical character recognition, which tells you I have an L, an M, and a T. So you can then translate that into text, and you can do things like look up the license plate and you list of the license plate you're looking for if somebody comes to the facilities, or if it's a person of interest for our clients. We determine those things with license plate recognition. And our clients have a database that they can input things to look for. So for example, we had one of our clients had a domestic violence situation in which they needed to make sure that the husband of the lady would never be in the premises. So they entered that license plate. So if that license plate had been in the parking lot, we would have been able to warn the security guards to take action and to respond to an event that maybe they wouldn't have known before. We also did gunshot detection, which is very interesting because it's usually known as the acoustic signature recognition. And what you're interested in when you're trying to detect a gunshot is basically what is the intensity of the sound that I just heard, what is the duration of the sound that I just heard, and what is the frequency of this sound. And you match that to the profile of a gunshot. This normally requires several points, several detections of sound, so you can triangulate the sound and see if it fits the description of a gunshot detection. And there's even some algorithms that are extremely good at determining what type of firearm was the one that you just heard. So we're working on that. That's something that we just made available. And another example of the use of AI that we have.
I think going back to the ALPR, automatic license plate recognition, remember when we first tried to do this, we actually, because license plate recognition has been around, right? and it's usually for a fixed camera. You're pulling into a parking structure and you got a vehicle that's not moving, and you take a gorgeous picture of that license plate that's very well lit, and then you can do the OCR. And so, not knowing anything, 10 years ago, we're like, oh, well, let's just get the LPR system and just stick it on the robot and it'll work. And yeah, not so much.
No.
Firmware keeps crashing, software is messed up, data comes out incorrect, and oh, by the way, the camera's now moving, and sometimes the vehicle's moving, and then like we're at a weird angle, it's not properly lit. A lot of states have different fonts for their license plates. Is it dawn or dusk? Is it middle of the night? It's just the same approach as we had to do with the people detection is on the license plates. The same kind of concept of having to train the algorithms to better understand what a plate looks like in, I guess, odd or weird conditions.
Yeah, I remember we tried at the beginning, and this is like way back when we tried using the license plate recognition that the police uses in their cars.
Yeah,
and then we figure
yeah.
out that it doesn't work because they usually have it at the bottom of the car and it's pointing down. No robots happen to be 4 feet tall, no really a foot from the floor. So that's another one we tried and didn't work for us.
So just to stress the point again, Knightscope is built on AI, has been using AI for the longest of time before this whole craziness the last year or so. So all your investors that keep asking the same question, we're on it, and we've already built stuff, actually have it deployed, generating revenue, and now is the next step to talk about what happens tomorrow. And I kind of put these in two different buckets here to make it easier to talk about. Just generally what could happen in the future, maybe external facing or client facing, and then there's a bunch of internal stuff that AI can be used at Knightscope, or we're planning to use it. So I think, Mercedes, you just talked about the 2,800 questionnaire craziness that you've gotten from some prospective clients for cybersecurity reviews and answering of those questions. How are you envisioning or thinking about using AI for cybersecurity in that regard?
So every time we get a new client, we have to fill out a security survey that could be, like I said before, 10 questions, or it could be 2,500. So instead of having a resource full-time just answering security surveys, the use of AI, especially generative AI, has come up as something that can help us very much, because we have all these surveys that we have answered in the past, and obviously they have to be reviewed now that we have an ATO. But you can feed all of the surveys into a generative AI large language model, and you can feed it as the information that it needs to know. And once you train that algorithm, the new security survey that we receive can be answered by anyone, because you will simply enter that question into the model, and it will give you the answer based on the security surveys that we have answered in the past. And that will help us complete those. Instead of taking 2-3 days of a person to complete a security survey, it can be done by a salesperson in a matter of hours, if not less. So we're using the information that we have captured since we started Knightscope. We have hundreds of surveys. We use it for that LLM, and we are making ourselves more agile to be able to answer the questions more quickly and to be more certain of what our answers are. Now, I won't say that is the solution to everything. It's not, because every time, let's say that yesterday we didn't have training for our engineers on secure coding practices, and today we just implemented that. So we have to go back to the training data, and we have to change those answers and retrain the algorithm. So it's not a solution for everything, but it's very much shortens the time that it will take us to be more agile to resolve our clients' questions.
And so just to compare and contrast to what we were talking about in terms of training on people or plates. In this particular case, you'd be using text to train the algorithms to get you the output that you want as opposed to images.
Yeah, exactly. So you use a question and you use the right answer, and that's what you feed the algorithm. That's why it's called a large language model, because it doesn't deal with images, it deals with language. So, and the way that those work are basically the algorithm is predicting what is the next word that should be put next to the word that I just typed based on what I've seen in my database.
Exactly. I think I bought a couple dozen companies in my life and always looking for something that's an accretive acquisition for us, and always need to do our homework. And you were helping me on one of them, which was looking to see if buying something to help us on the video search side would be interesting. How would that work from a generative AI perspective?
So the difference between video search and just detecting a person or detecting a face is that in video search you have to do what's called scene classification. So you have to merge the answers of three different things. You have video, in which you can determine people's emotions. You can determine their gait or what they're doing. You also have audio. Because you can detect the sounds around the robot for a fire gun or whatever, something like that could happen. And you also can do NLP, natural language processing, for things like social media posts. So when you're doing video search, you're looking at all that information and you're trying to find out, I'm looking for a person. For example, it's very different if the image just shows you a backpack. Well, it could be a person who's walking around with a backpack on, no problem. But video search has to be smart enough to know that a backpack on somebody's back is very different as a backpack that was left under a chair in a bus station, because that could be something dangerous. There could be a bomb in that backpack. So this whole what is going on around what I just detected, that is what's important in video search. Is way more advanced than just detecting an object or being there or not being there. Is detecting what's around the object that you're interested in.
So when you said scene, would that an example would be, instead of searching for someone with a red hoodie, it would be someone with a red hoodie riding a bicycle next to a brown car and a big tree. Like, would that be like a scene?
Yeah. Think about scene as content. What's happening right now? That's what the algorithm has to do. Because if you detect a face, you just know it's a face. You don't know what else is happening. You don't know if that.
There's no context.
There's no context. But in video search, you have to know and understand what is the content of what's happening right now. That's what video search is. 10 times more difficult problem than people detection or facial recognition.
So let's go on to concierge. You spent some time on this already. We did a little proof of concept, and I think we had some issues back then, and we can talk about that. But you had your cut at trying to use AI for a concierge service. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so back then, when was that? That was, I think, about 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know if people watching this are familiar with IBM Watson. So it's the first company that came up with an artificial intelligence machine that was able to communicate with humans and provide answers to questions. It was the first shot at doing that. And we decided to use them because at the time we were going to casinos and we were going to malls. And one of the things that our customers kept requesting over and over was, hey, if this robot is going to be roaming around my mall, I would like it to also replace the person in my information site. So if somebody comes and asks, tell me where's the food court, or tell me where can I find this Macy's store, or things like that, they wanted the robot to be able to answer those types of questions. So we started developing, we deployed actually IBM Watson. And the funny thing on that is, it was actually the difficult part of that wasn't really the translation between what the person said to text and then that text to the database to look for an answer. When the answer comes back, you have to translate it to audio so the robot can literally speak. to the person so they can understand. That wasn't the difficult. It sounds difficult, but it wasn't that bad. What really got us at that point was connectivity, because by the time somebody will say a question to the robot, we had to send that question up to the cloud. The cloud had to translate the text, the cloud had to find an answer, and by the time the answer came back, I think we were averaging about 9 seconds of wait time.
Ridiculous
which, if you ask
latency.
me, for all the stuff that the robot is doing, 9 seconds is awesome. But our clients didn't think so. Our clients wanted an immediate answer. They wanted, if I ask a question now, you push the button, I really want an answer immediately.
But fast forward to now, like if you go on ChatGPT or the like, and you go type a question, it sits there for a little bit, right? It's not an immediate answer. So you add that plus the telecom latency of the data going up and down to the cloud, still not there yet, I think. I think we're still maybe a few years.
I think the way to solve that for us will be, instead of having to go to an external source and trying to do the cloud solution and find the answers there and translate the text and all of that, I think the solution for us will be to deploy an LLM on the robot itself. So there's no having to go to the cloud, there's no having to wait for a translation. All of it happens inside of the robot. And I think that's our best shot of getting that to work the way our clients will be okay with it, because the waiting time is just something they couldn't get past.
Yep. So stay tuned. It will be worked on. I think one that I still have a fascination over is just machine UX is a term we use internally. It's the machine user experience. Like, how does the machine relate to a human? And that, I think, as we get the robots to be smarter and smarter and more understanding of context, not just geolocation and obstacle avoidance and path planning and all that good stuff, is for them to be able to interact much better with a human. And that can be things that are spoken, sounds that it makes, lights that turn on and off, how it turns, how quickly it turns, how it interacts. I think that's a lot of I don't want to say fine tuning, but polishing that would make the overall experience for our clients much better. And I think AI is going to play a huge role in that.
Yeah, and one of the perfect examples of machine UX is actually below swarming. So we can talk about it when we get to that, and that's probably one of the best examples of what we'll be doing.
Go for it.
So in swarming, what swarming means, for those who don't know, is enables for doing things that happen in nature. For example, you've seen a flock of birds, you've seen a colony of ants. What they're able to accomplish as a group is a lot more efficient and a lot more intense than what each individual would be able to accomplish. And when you're talking about a group of robots that have a swarm, they will be able to accomplish tasks that are way beyond the ability of any single robot by itself. They will be able to share information, they will be able to act on that information, and we will be using what's called a consensus algorithm. And the thing about consensus algorithms is that everybody provides an input, and when there's a solution that the algorithm has determined is what you have to do, then everyone agrees to it. And even if one robot was to disconnect from the swarm, you still have an answer that would have been better than if every robot by itself came up with its different answer. And what you do there is what's called collective intelligence. The collective intelligence of the swarm is more efficient, higher level than what it be from an individual or for the sum of all its parts. So that's when swarming is going to bring a lot of value, because we will have one example of that would be if we have a problem with a shooter in a school and you have 4 or 5 robots, you have them all deciding to go either to exit routes or to decide to go to the entrance to try to get the person who just came into the building. Those are solutions that a robot by itself might not be able to do. But if you have a set of robots doing that, you have a lot more capabilities, and what you can accomplish is a lot more than what you would with an individual robot.
And I think to build on that, it can be not necessarily the same kind of robot. So maybe to segue to the crazy thing I put up here, what I been internally calling 4D mission control is think of devices, which would be could be a camera, could be a stationary emergency communication device, could be a droid or a robot or a humanoid, could be a dog or a quadruped robot, or it could be a drone. So all with these, and that collective approach to solving a problem doesn't necessarily have to be, well, only the devices talk to each other and only the droids talk to each other and the drones are in a separate type of thing. There is a strong concept to have, well, the stationary automated gunshot detection device just went off. This robot over here has the plates and the live footage and detected the particular person, and then decided to tell the drone to deploy and go get aerial reconnaissance now and hover there for the next 20 minutes until we can get this resolved. That is another way for these all to communicate. And one of the things I'm going to be talking about here later this week is how does that look like? What does that look like from a UX standpoint? How does a user, a security professional or law enforcement professional utilize all these technologies? It's not going to work the way it's set up today, right? If you go hire a quadruped dog that has its own user interface, you hire a drone company, they have their own user interface. You hire Knightscope, we've got our CAMS emergency management system for all our blue light stuff, and then we have the autonomous security robots feeding everything into the KSOC. What are you going to do? Have like 4 or 5 passwords and 4 or 5 user interfaces? Like, this doesn't work. And I think there's a humongous opportunity for Knightscope to build something innovative based on this level of new AI to integrate all this stuff and get things to be a lot smarter collectively. And you're not, for all the security professionals that are tuning in, you're not going to be using your video management system to manage the flood of robots and drones and dogs and devices that are coming. And there's going to need to be a next generation of user interface for professionals like yourself to be able to operate all this stuff real time and have the machines frankly help each other. So I think we can cover the patrol schedule real quick, which is I guess having the machines decide where they should patrol by themselves, as opposed to someone sitting there programming, hey, I need you to be there at 3 o'clock in the morning in parking lot B.
Yeah, it's really more intelligence that's added to a machine. For example, and we'll talk about this as well, when you're doing, let's say, gunshot detection, your algorithms can also determine what is a high-risk area. If I have heard a gunshot here 3 times in the last month, this is really a high problem area. So should the robot, instead of a client wants it to be in front of the building, but really there's a lot more problems in the back of the building at night between midnight and 6 a.m. So the patrol scheduler might decide that's a better place to go patrol instead of patrolling in the front because there's more danger there. So that's a combination of what you have, your acoustic event detection, your gunshot detection, integrated with the decisions that the robot has to make in terms of where's the best use of its patrolling hours.
And I think to make it less technical, just think of it when you go on Amazon or you're going online shopping basically, and there's a recommendation engine and says, hey, you should take a look at this. That's basically AI in the background having watched everything that you've done recently or over time, and then taking that data and using it, this would kind of be the same concept, but just applied for public safety. Um, I think you covered the other ones already on. So you want to let's talk about internal. I think a lot of people kind of focus on usage of AI and how it's going to change the how clients or what new feature you're going to come up with or whatever. But AI is going to be a profound level of efficiency for internal operations. And you've been leading up software engineering for us for a very long time. Like how would you look at it in terms of capabilities of the team and output, etc.?
So if it's okay, I'll start with one that we're actually doing that is not in this list.
Go for it.
So in the cybersecurity environment, some of the things that we've had to put in place are AI for cybersecurity, which is taking care of threat detection, response and prevention, and automated intelligence systems. So one example of those would be we have logs of who connects to our network every day. Mm-hmm. So it's really impossible for a human to be able to review all those megabytes and gigabytes of data every single day and try to figure out if there's a pattern. Because when somebody tries to break into your network, they're gonna hit you once, try with maybe a different password, hit you twice with maybe a different password. So AI, the systems that we have in place, are able to say, hey, this IP address has been trying to get into this network unsuccessfully for, let's say, 5 days. Hey, we need to be looking at this, I raise a flag. So as part of what we did for the government, we put in place systems that do that prevent malware, phishing attempts, and unusual network behavior that can be determined by AI that would be just impossible for a human to do. So those things we have today in cybersecurity in our environment. In terms of software development, I'm sure people have noticed there's been a lot of coverage on the fact that generative AI with copilots can help you speed up your software development by at least 40%. So that's something that we're looking into. Obviously, we have to be very careful because we don't want to just put our code in ChatGPT, right? And then that code being used to help someone else, or is out in the open and somebody can see our source code. So we're going to be doing that internally. We're going to set up our own ChatGPT-like tool, so we can have a copilot for software engineers and firmware engineers. So their job can be done a lot more quickly, and they can be a lot more productive than they are today without those tools. And those are the things that we're looking at in terms of what we're going to do for software development. And actually, ChatGPT is something that we're already using in the company, but not in software engineering. There's a lot of us, I would say, that are replacing a lot of research that we used to have to do with ChatGPT, helping us be more effective at our jobs on a daily basis.
Yep. And I think some of it, on the Grimble side of things, like I haven't coded in, decades, but
Pascal.
Pascal.
You used to call him Pascal.
I used to code in Pascal. We had to bring that up. So one of the things that I think will be really helpful is if you look at our entire portfolio of technology, we have a lot of legacy stuff, or others would call it technical debt. In some cases, a former employee wrote something, maybe didn't document it properly. The thing that drives you crazy, like someone put the username and password in the code, and it's like, okay. So being able to, have a co-pilot help you clean up some old code or understand how to rewrite it so that it's, a little bit more efficient, or you're careful with global variables or what have you. I think, each engineer at minimal should be able to be much more effective, or the equivalent of maybe 2 or 3 or more engineers as these tools get more and more sophisticated. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's very well documented that the average engineer gets a 40% time improvement. So if you look at just those numbers and you can do a little better, I mean, you're gonna do the job of two engineers with one person, and this is only gonna get better as as generative AI becomes more mainstream and as the algorithms keep evolving and improving. It's gonna, my prediction is it's gonna become a point in which you're just gonna probably code completely on a generative AI tool. Doesn't mean that our software engineers won't have jobs. That means the jobs will be of a higher level, which they'll be excited to do.
Yep, yep. I think one of the ones that drives me crazy is the really hard work, and it's sometimes more art than science, that our deployment engineers have to do to get all this stuff shipped out. It's not like you build a robot, QA it, do the burn-in test, put it in a crate, ship it, and tell the client, press go, and you're good to go. It's a bit of an undertaking to actually deploy the technology out in the real world. And I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to be able to get, that week or two of work down to a day or two. And part of it is just rethinking how we do the deployment setup, how we set up the parameters, how you actually do the navigation work, and re-engineering that with a different perspective is going to be interesting, especially because we patrol very similar stuff over and over and over and over again, unlike our friends over at Tesla, who have to operate pretty much in a quote-unquote random environment globally. That's a little bit different for us, and I think a lot more achievable for us to be able to re-engineer that entire process. So why don't we start heading towards the wrap up here. We've got a couple more subjects. You want to cover a little bit on maybe preventive maintenance or self-healing repairs that we've been talking about?
Yes, so for self-healing repairs, we have detailed records of what's done. When a robot fails for some reason, a robot or a part, we're trying to keep really detailed records so we can say, hey, I have this machine learning algorithm that is going to take as input all the history of this robot and what parts have failed and how often they fail, and under which conditions they fail. So we feed that in and we train the algorithm, and it'll be able to eventually tell us, hey, you know what? This robot usually requires a change of a tire every 3 years. So that's what we're calling preventative maintenance. Before the part or the program fails or before the error happens, we're able to come and deal with it because we have learned from what happened in the past. And the good news is that our 10 years of experience kept us here. Now, have we kept extremely detailed records of maintenance for 10 years? No. But we're doing it now, and that's what's going to help us. We have a tool called Service Desk, Zendesk that allows us to be very detailed in what we do and what happened, what parts did you have to use to fix it, what work did you do to fix it, and how long did it take you? And those are the things that we're going to be fitting into the algorithms to allow us to be able to be more proactive. And when do we have to go do maintenance in a robot, instead of a client having to call us and say, hey, we had to park the robot because whatever didn't work that time. So we want to be more proactive on that and make sure that our clients don't have to worry about things like that. Another thing that we're exploring is a simulation, because everybody knows what simulation is. Basically, we would love to go to the Mojave Desert, we would love to go to the mountains, we would love to go to many different places and put the robot in different scenarios and handle diverse and unexpected situations and see how the robot does. And something that allows us to do that is simulation. It's something that we're going to be using for building our robots and for doing design and industrial design of those. And with generative AI, especially for industrial design, it allows us to explore options that normally we might not have explored. For example, we are designing a robot with, I'm just gonna make this up, 3 wheels, but we give the parameters to our algorithm and we say it needs to be able to go on gravel, and it needs to be able to go on to run in the rain and different types of scenarios. And the model might come back with a very different design than the one we had, and something that we might not have considered. So that is something that our designers are going to be using in the future. So it's going to also make them more productive, and more importantly, it's going to give them situations that they might not have thought about when they're trying to design a robot.
Our jobs are really tough, but one of the ones that I personally enjoy a lot is, spending with time designing things. And I mean, we go through hundreds and hundreds of sketches, and sometimes it's not there yet. The technology's not there yet. Some of them have been pretty humorous when we've attempted to do this, but I can see not too much longer where you can put in a base concept design and ask the algorithm to iterate on it and give me 3 or 5 other versions of this, flavor, and not make it all crooked and stuff, which is happening today. That'll get fixed. And I think the same goes with audio design. If you're trying to design a new sound for the machine, some of us back in the day would sit in front of a guitar or a synthesizer or something and manually try to go do that. And these days you can actually type in, I want a certain kind of sound or what have you, and you can start fine-tuning it there. So this is just all going to make everyone so much productive on the human side of things, and then on the robot side of things, it's going to make them profoundly more capable. So I think it's going to be a fascinating, well, I'm going to say decade. What do you think, Mercedes? How long do you think some of the stuff that's on the screen here will be in full force?
I don't think it will be a decade, it will be half that. If we have the resources to be able to do it and the time to be able to dedicate to this, things are changing so quickly, so fast. I don't think it would be a decade, it would be probably half that, in my opinion. There will be, in about 10 years, what you see today as the massive generative AI companies and all the things that they're able to do, just be part of what IT is today. So things are changing fast.
Well, thank you for the fascinating discussion and all the work you've done. One last question before we wrap up. You helped build the company over the last decade. You kind of know where things are. You're at the forefront of technology and AI and cybersecurity. What do you see? What do you think someone from Wall Street or an investor would want to know from your perspective as to where Knightscope will be in the future or where it's going?
I would say something that they should know about Knightscope is we are a cutting edge technology company. We try to use everything that is new, but we're not irresponsible. There's a lot of people out there who will give you and we're going to use ABC and D and generative AI, this or that or the other. We're pretty conservative in what we do. We try technologies that we know are going to work, and we don't put it out at the client side unless we know it works. I would tell you, I would close with what somebody told me once. I was in a meeting with some female entrepreneurs, and they asked me, what do you work on? And I told them that I work on a product that uses machine learning, AI, and robotics. And her answer was, oh, on the buzzwords right now. And I told her, yeah, but we started 10 years ago. So, yeah, so she was like, oh. So we don't put things out there that we're not sure are going to work. We're very careful when we apply technology. We want to make sure that it works. We don't use it just because it's the buzzword that is the new word today. We're actually very careful and very considerate of how do we best satisfy the needs of our clients? That is what drives what you see on this screen. It's not the buzzwords, it's not what everybody's talking about, it's what our clients have told us. That is our advantage over any other robotics company. We have clients and we've been doing this for 10 years. So everything you see is coming from there. It's not something that we decided is nice to put in a PowerPoint and we're going to try to woo the investors with that. It's not the case. This is all learned from the experience that we've had.
Oh, thank you for that genuine response. And thanks everyone for tuning in for day 2 of Innovation Week. Hopefully you found this helpful, and we're on to the next session. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, we're on to the next session for Innovation Week, and we're going to talk about machines and network. I think if you total it up, we've got nearing 10,000 if you add up our entire K1B and ASR portfolio. And a lot of people focus on all the technology, all the software, firmware, electrical, hardware, the robots, all the shiny objects, but often forget to think about the business model as machine as a service. Emphasis on service. This part is really hard to do it 24/7 across the country with cutting edge brand new technology that a lot of our incoming new clients have never used before. So I gathered here a bunch of subject matter experts that have been looking at it from a technical standpoint, from an operational standpoint, from a client experience perspective, and they're here to give you a little, I'll call it behind the screen. Some of them may share some technical stuff and geek out a little bit, but why don't we do some quick introductions?
Just a little bit.
First. Just a little quick introductions first. Pietro, you want to introduce yourself real quick for those that hadn't met you from day one?
Yeah, sure. My pleasure. So welcome everybody. My name is Pietro Pierpaoli. I am a senior robotics engineer at Knightscope, and I'm the lead of the autonomy team. Along with the team, we supervise the autonomous motion of the robot, where that is go, where it doesn't have to go, and related matters. We also supervise part of the media stack, so specifically audio. There is an interaction between the navigation and audio, so that's why the connection there. Very happy to be part of the team. I've been with Knightscope for a year and a half, a little over that, and I've learned a lot, and I really amazed by the opportunity of really developing and see what robotics is in the real world. We're gonna talk about that today a lot.
I think you got a second PhD in audio in the last year and a half.
I think so.
Nick, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey everyone, I'm Nick Pergali. I'm one of the managers here at Knightscope on the robotic engineering team. I've been with Knightscope for a little over 2 years now. Before that, I was the CEO of my own robotics company, selling hardware off the shelf, and got really envious of machine as a service or robotics as a service business models. And so I decided to make the switch and join Knightscope a little over 2 years ago now.
I call Nick the do everything department. He basically has his fingers in everything and making progress every single day. DJC.
Hey, yeah, my name is Daniel Coleman. I'm the senior lead deployment engineer. I've been with the company for over 5 years now, and previous to this, I was in network security, but just been grinding away at Knightscope with robots, starting as a robot babysitter, and here we are deploying robots. So glad to be here.
Good to see you, Daniel. Ronnie.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining. I'm Ronald Gallegos. My friends call me Ronnie. You can all call me Ronnie. And I'm Senior Vice President of Client Experience, and that includes service over autonomous security robots, as well as the K1B side, which is all of our call boxes, blue light towers, e-phones in the field. And I've been with Knightscope for about 7.5 years, and started on the sales side kind of moved over, so went from a hunter to kind of a farmer, and been in physical security one way or another for about 23 years. So just really happy to be a part of this team, and wouldn't have it any other way. So thanks.
I'll say this publicly. Ronnie has one of the most difficult jobs on the team. Building all this stuff is hard, engineering it all is hard, but running this stuff every day is a bit of a tall task, and I think that gives us a humongous competitive advantage because we've got practical experience. As I've said all this week, nearly 3 million hours out in the field of practical use of AI technology in the real world for millions of hours, generating millions of dollars of revenue. So thank you, Ronnie, Daniel, Nick, Pietro, all the stuff that you guys have done. You've really taken the teamwork makes the dream work motto to heart, and I appreciate it. So today, Ronnie, you're gonna help lead the discussion on all the behind the scenes stuff.
Sure. So yeah,
You're gonna PowerPoint us to death now?
All right. If you get bored, let me know. We can always jump online, do some shopping or something, you know? All right. So hopefully you are seeing my screen okay. All right.
Very good.
All right. So I think Daniel, Pietro, Nick, feel free to jump in at any time, but I'll kind of go through the ASR site survey process. So what we do is we'll actually have in the field service technicians who will do on-site survey analysis of cellular signal strength everywhere the robot's going to patrol. So we'll get patrol paths ahead of time. They'll also measure sidewalks. They'll look for different permanent feature sets that the robot's going to use to kind of navigate off of using light detection and ranging technology, which Daniel can get into more. And then we come back and we say, okay, you didn't necessarily pass this site survey, so here are some modifications we need you to make for your site. We need you to potentially install private LTE, which has really been a game changer for us because it takes a client's Wi-Fi signal and turns it into an equally as powerful LTE signal. And now you're able to do things you can't do on publicly available LTE, which is streams video 24/7, 365 on all 4 cameras. It allows us to connect to our machines really quickly for support. We support our machines 24/7. And then kind of on the other sides of things, we get together with our clients and we do robot post orders. So this is really developing everything this robot security guard is going to do for you, if you want to look at it that way. And this autonomous security robot, here's what he's going to say when he detects a certain type of alert. Here's the times of day when he's looking for people when there should be no people there. What are the thermal thresholds that you're comfortable with? What do you want the robot to say when it sees that person? If someone hits that intercom button, where do you want that to go? You know, things of that nature. And then we customize. So what type of voice do you want your machine to have? Some of our clients have the mayor speaking through the robot with his voice. We've got branding. Some of our clients even have like seasonal branding, different types of promotional branding, and then what sort of messaging. And then that could be either time-based or alert-based. So you can have the robot automatically broadcasting messages when it detects people. It could be a friendly message. It could be an authoritative message. And then we do a lot of KSOC configuration initially. So
don't forget different languages too.
That's true too. Absolutely. Yep. So any sort of KSOC configuration, we'll make sure we get all the users set up, and we'll kind of the deployment project management process. I'll probably turn it over to Daniel a little bit.
Hold on, Ronnie. For
Yes.
some of our audience, I don't think they know what a KSOC is.
Oh, yes. Good point. So KSOC, so that's our web-based user interface. It's our Knightscope Security Operations Center. It's ksoc.co, accessible preferably from a Google Chrome browser. And you can access it anywhere where you're gonna get the internet, and then you're able to see streaming video. You're able to receive alerts that come up as a pop-up You're able to kind of scroll through and archive and look at archived alerts. You're able to look at 30 days of historical video. You're able to look at all your persons of interest and all these different things that you have associated with your account that we all help build for you in CX. And then deployment project management, there's about 150 checklist items to complete from the sales to CX handoff process to the point where we call it deployment certification. But I'll kind of turn it over to Daniel and Nick to talk about that piece.
Yeah, absolutely. So the site survey process, we're really just trying to have the highest success rate when it comes to robot deployment. And like Ronnie said, we use LiDAR-based mapping. So we have to make sure that the environment is good for the robot. And whether that's a 9-story parking garage or, an outdoor parking lot, maybe both, potentially maybe an indoor site, which we do a lot better with because obviously there's a lot more, there's more walls around the robot in which we can safely navigate and without losing our way. So that's a very important part of the process, as well as, like he said, the LTE. We have to make sure we have good connectivity, not only for the engineers working on the robot, but also you as a client to make sure that your live video feed is as crisp as possible at all times. And really, the deployment process is kind of grindy. We just want to make sure we have everything checked off so that the experience from the client side is perfect. Not missing anything. All the bells and whistles are all there. And
what happens, Daniel, when you show up and the building is slanted or they have slanted glass or whatever? You get really excited?
So all of us in the room, we've all been through the understanding of our limitations through trial and error. And sometimes we do encounter certain situations that we didn't expect would be a challenge for us. So at this point, we have the highest expertise, I think, of all time as far as how our robots operate and where our limitations are. So yeah, absolutely. We can run into a slanted building, which gives different LiDAR, values depending on how far away the robot is, causing us to get a little bit confused at times. But yeah.
So this 150 checklist items is obviously proprietary to Knightscope, but did we have this, Daniel, when you did your first deployment? Absolutely not.
We did not have that. It's a very good point. Now I kind of consider it a Bible of sense. This is our rule book, and now I'm very glad we have it because it's really streamlined the deployment process and make sure that we can get the best quality of deployment in the lowest amount of time without forgetting anything. And a lot of checklist items have been added over the last couple of years, and there's still more to be added, I'm sure. So
one of the things I love is just seeing Knightscope grow and our teammates to grow with it. How has that 150 item checklist helped in training up a new deployment engineer that I think you spent the last more than a few months doing?
Yeah. Actually, it's essentially been the basis of that training model. We start at the checklist, and as we go down the checklist, we break off into different processes and documentation and whatnot. But that's really the the guide that we follow when setting up deployments nowadays. So it's very important.
Excellent. Nick, you got anything to add there?
I would just add that one of the things that makes Knightscope special isn't some secret recipe, like the Coke recipe that someone could steal and replicate what we do. The secret sauce is the whole team and our whole process of walking clients through. Almost all of our clients have never bought a security robot before, and they need a helping hand, and they need and when you buy a security product, your business usually isn't security. You're usually in business for something else, and security is just a risk that your business is having. And so you want it to go away, and you don't want to spend a lot of time, but you want someone there to help you set things up. So So having Daniel and the rest of the deployment team and the CX team is really a huge part of our secret sauce of having that really good client experience and having someone to walk you through the whole deployment process. And it doesn't end at deployment. We have, as you said, we're robot as a service. We're doing a lot of things post-deployment to make sure that the machines are staying up, and that's all part of, the secret sauce.
And I think it's funny, but not funny, that Ronnie started out in sales and was our top sales executive. And then now understanding what happens downstream if you sell the wrong robot to the wrong location to the wrong client. Oh, yeah. Bad stuff happens.
Yes, all too familiar with that now.
Well, a lot of the time we had to turn certain clients away or turn certain use cases away because technologically speaking we weren't ready for it. But now having Nick and Pietro and their whole team, we can essentially accomplish a lot more than we had before. The deployment team and the engineering team work so closely together nowadays that it's honestly the best time.
Excellent.
If there is one more comment I will make, we talked about this yesterday, so maybe for the folks that did not attend the event yesterday, is the deployment process is really where robotics stops being equation and algorithm. It goes out of the textbook and becomes what it is, robotics for Knightscope, which is not the robotics you see in video games and movies. It's really things that work everywhere in every possible situation. So as we discussed, there are criteria and tests that we put in place to show we can do what we want to do. But that's really where all the complexity of the real world, or the different features and parameters of your hidden model are just punching you in the face and say, yeah, I'm here too. That's really where things become fascinating. This tight connection between the deployment engineers enables us to do really, really significant progress.
So Pietro, what you're saying is 10 years of experience of getting punched in the face yielded a 150 item checklist. Is that what you just said?
That's expected outcome, exactly.
All right. Ronnie, you want to get us back on track here?
Yeah, sure. So, okay. I won't spend a ton of time on this as it's a newer division for us, but K1B is part of an acquisition we made, and it really is an exciting front for us because there's so much opportunity with things like the blue light tower. But in terms of the deployment process, the site survey process, we do client site walks where we'll take a look on the site with the client at very specific call box locations, and we'll analyze if someone's standing on the campus, anywhere on the campus, are they going to see the call box in this area? So anywhere you're going to be, you should be able to see a blue light is kind of the logic. And then also we'll submit dig requests to make sure that we're allowed to dig there. That's another part of it. A lot of times we'll contract that out, and then we'll do the testing and the installation, and then we activate what we call chems, which is another user interface similar to KSOC in that it's showing all the kind of current status, the real-time updates of each of the call boxes. And we have thousands and thousands of call boxes out there in the world.
Which, a year ago wasn't the case, right? The Knightscope emergency management system didn't exist.
Correct.
And we were, or our clients were requiring us to physically go have a human go press the button and make sure it was working, as opposed to using technology to remotely do that. And now we can, instead of checking once or twice a year, we're literally checking 24/7 and making sure that we can deliver on the public promise for public safety.
Absolutely. All right. When you look at the whole, so when we get to CX and service, ASRs and blue light towers and e-phones and roadside emergency call boxes, as a CX team, we really, and this has kind of been ingrained in us from our CEO, but really giving that 5-star service, that white glove treatment, and we're making clients feel really welcome when they sign up with Knightscope, and that's sending them different types of Knightscope attire, different types of cups and like fun things to take with them on picnics but also things like cookies and we'll trade you a cookie for a social media post and all kinds of fun things like that. And then pictures of when their machine's actually being packed up and shipping to their site. We'll send them things to share with their employee population or their tenant population or their resident population. We encourage naming contests, and we're there every step of the way, just holding their hand until they get the machine. And we're always available. So like the team said, it's not just we deliver the machine and we're done. I mean, it is machine as a service. So we're always we have our cell phones by our side. We're trying to be available 24/7 as much as we can. But we also monitor the machines 24/7 with a 24/7 knock team. And we proactively maintain our ASRs, our call boxes. We provide a lot of special event support. So this is where, let's say you have a strike happening at your site and you want an ASR to be in that area to really help to get that eye level surveillance that you can't get with your, aerial CCTV perspectives. Or you have a media event, which is a lot of what happens. The news agencies coming to interview you and the robot. So we gotta support you, and we gotta work late and your CX analyst is gonna be there with you to help make sure, the machine's right where it needs to be. It's broadcasting messages, the intercom's going right where it needs to go. And then the PR side, we're helping to collaborate with you to really get a viral PR, effort going in your local market. And that's the case in a lot of scenarios. And then we have quarterly business reviews where we review things that you like, things that we could do better. We review how many thousands or hundreds of miles the machine patrolled over the past quarter. We review a lot of other types of things like who are your current KSOC users, anyone needing KSOC training. But there's a lot that goes into it, but I'll turn it over to the team because I know there's a lot of things that they do here as well.
I'm curious. I mean, Ronnie, you remember when we had basically one person that would handle the customer experience from a new sale all the way to deployed robot and in the field.
Or no person.
Or yeah, yeah. Do you feel like we're more effective now that we've kind of divided the teams and based on where in the process the client is?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say from starting here 7.5 years ago, when we didn't have like a footprint yet either, but so it's exciting to be a part of something that's ramped up so rapidly over the years. But also back then there would be a lot of emails, communications from clients where they don't know who am I supposed to talk to? Like there's no one there, right? And here it's always, oh, I love the communication. Like I get so much support from you guys. I really appreciate the CX communication, and that's what we do. We just over communicate. We're communicating so much.
And maybe I can share a little context for the audience as to kind of why we went down this path. So the first one is more societal norms where, oh, the robots are coming, they're going to take everyone's job and kill everybody. And you have to, probably the easiest way to cure that is just have some manners and etiquette and quote unquote introduce yourself before you show up. Meaning we've had a few occasions where some clients didn't listen and just just put the robot there. We don't need to tell the tenants, faculty, students, residents, whoever it is, employees, that there's going to be a public safety, robot here. And all kinds of bad stuff ended up happening, right? Because everyone starts thinking, well, what is this robot here? What does it actually do? And you go down back down into the ditch with, unfortunate circumstances and discussions. And the way to kind of cure that is, hey, the robot's coming. Hey, you want to have a naming contest? You want to have some robot cake? Let's do the training up front. Let's explain what this does. Let's do a lunch and learn. Why is it here? And that smooths things over in a big way to avoid some of those issues. And then I think, without picking on any part of the industry in general, there's a lot to be desired in the public safety, law enforcement, security industry, where there are some companies that do exceptionally well, but the majority don't do very well with client retention, don't do very well with employee retention. We've had a lot of interactions with end users who, and I use this word intentionally, it's a little harsh, hate their providers. And that's not a healthy set of circumstances. So we took a more of a longer view that, we're not perfect, but what we can do is how do we handle an issue when it does come up, and how do we conduct ourselves and try to, over time, become that trusted advisor, trusted provider. And it's showing. I mean, you read the QBRs and it's like, so-and-so CX analyst is awesome, so-and-so support is great. And so I know the team's doing really well and communicating and supporting, and in some cases providing additional insights to the engineering team so we can make some more changes. But this is a long-term bet to make sure that over time, Knightscope ends up being the trusted technology provider to law enforcement, public safety, and security professionals nationwide.
All right.
So, where are we off to now?
Okay, so now we're going to talk about some more client experience and service for ASRs and blue light towers and e-phones and call boxes. So some of the things that we do, and Nick can probably speak to this, we do a lot of firmware upgrades in the field. We do a lot of software upgrades. We even do hardware upgrades. Some of the things that I get really excited about are when we really get to customize their web-based user interface. So beyond just configuring, but really let us go to work for you. Like, let us upload all of your facial recognition database. Let us upload all of your license plates that your persons of interest you want to look out for, your automatic signal detection database, and let us help set your thermal thresholds to what we would recommend, and your alert scheduler, and your patrol schedule list, your drop-down messages, your automatic patrol or broadcast messages. And then we do a lot of training. So we have a weekly kind of open to all user training for our web-based user interface KSOC. We have CHEMS user training that we're just getting launched now. And we'll even train after hours to make sure, because a lot of cases we're working with security operations centers where they've got night shift, and everyone can't be available at the same time. So we're, in some cases with new clients, we're jumping on at 11 o'clock, midnight. Thank you, Tyrone. Shout out to Tyrone. And training with the midnight staff. It's we've done it in person. We do a lot of it virtually. We got the guy I just mentioned. He's actually going to do an in-person training in Texas tomorrow. So it's exciting to be a part of that. And then we also help a lot with the investigations.
Hold on, Ronnie.
Yeah,
Go back to Tyrone for a second.
Yes.
So Tyrone used to manage, I forgot, what was it, 150 security guards or something like that?
Yep.
And like, things don't always run smoothly, like any company, any new technology, there's plenty of issues, and we have our bad days and weeks and what have you. And so I was checking in on him a month or two ago. I'm like, hey, Tyrone, you're still good? Like, you'd rather manage the robots than the humans? He's like, hands down. I'm good. I don't want to ever go back and do that again.
That's right. So something that also really gets me excited too is the security investigations, because this is really where we get to help our clients so much. We get to solve crimes for clients. Like, what's cooler than that? So we've solved things. It's kind of all over our website, and there's stories we can't mention, there's stories we can, but a lot of video surveillance has helped serve as evidence. And we've got a lot of clients that are they still have the robots 5-6 years later because of how much of a reduction in security incidents they've seen. We provision a lot of video evidence that's been used in a lot of really important scenarios. And then on the service management side, we're getting deeper into a online service ticket management platform. We're leveraging AI. We got a lot of nationwide and regional service partners where we have really great partnerships with just great techs, really high caliber people that are just enhancing the client experience because they're so good at what they do. And then post deployment, we just make sure we're staying transparent. We get post-deployment certification surveys. We do service surveys of all of our service providers, and then we do CX surveys of the CX analysts at each site.
And what's TLC? Daniel, you want to tune people in?
Yeah, tender love and care. We, as deployment engineers, we love to go back to a site and or a deployment, so to speak, and make sure that things are still going smoothly. A lot of the times, following a deployment, the site will change. There'll be construction undergoing, any kind of factor that may change over time, and we like to go back there and clean it up, so to speak, and give that robot its much deserved tender love and care. So that's for the client and the robot.
Very good.
All right, Pietro.
All right. There is the opportunity here, I think, to talk about something that is not immediate, maybe, about what we do, but is definitely worth discussing. So if we think about what the machines that we build and provide are doing, sometimes I think of that as you can think of them as a server, like a server in a server room, on top of a electric vehicle, running a bunch of AI applications and maybe sensors for security attached to it. So it's really a complex ecosystem of different technologies. And there is an aspect that is common to everybody. Like you receive an update on your phone firmware, on your computer, your printer, your car, everywhere really. There is this idea of where things are evolving. The supporting technology team is adding new features, fixing problems, and therefore comes a software update, right? But being this complex system, the autonomy security robot, there is a non-negligible aspect which also involves updating hardware, and that's something that I think has a big impact on both the way we operate and the skill levels that we need to develop in-house. So why we do that in the first place? When on one side the technology evolves, improves, we come up with better way of thinking about certain problems. And at the same time, clients, they have different needs, and maybe they come up with new needs, and both those things together can require or might make advantages for us and for the client to actually do a hardware update as well. So we went through a number of them, and it's a very peculiar operation of what we do, because when we think about DevOps procedures, usually that's a practice associated with software, but this is really basically doing DevOps on hardware, and it's the full spectrum of really maintaining a technology on the field that we take care of. This is of course the three major components or ingredients of the story are the fact that we have a fleet on one end, that it's a spatial distribution across the country. There are hardware and software updates that need to be coordinated and managed for the update we are discussing about. And then these updates, the hardware updates, are actually managed remotely by the engineer or the deployment team and performed on site by the service team. So it's really a complex ecosystem of activities that take place.
And Pietro, remind me, what was the topic for your PhD?
My topic for PhD was trustworthiness in collision avoidance.
Okay. And so who physically did the first audio upgrade that needed software and hardware? Who physically did it?
It was me with a couple of Konica Minolta tech at somewhere in proximity of Los Angeles airport. It was very fun.
So, I mean, that's a theme that I hopefully folks are getting this week. The team, the management team, the engineers, everyone's really hands-on. And there's not that's not my job theme anywhere in the company. Everyone pitches in on subjects that they're very fluent in, and sometimes in subjects they know nothing about, but will go off and just jump on the grenade and go fix the problem. And that's the team that you're betting on, and that's where I'm betting that Knightscope's going to be very successful over the next coming years, is because of the Knightscope team.
I think Ronnie knows quite a few things about jumping into situations he may not be.
Oh, I'll tell you a funny story, Daniel. So when, speaking of jumping on grenades, I convinced or asked Ronnie to move from sales to client experience. He started getting into the job and what have you. And in my head, he had been in robot sales. He's been in software sales prior. He's worked in a lot of security guarding companies. And then he had to remind me that a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, he actually did technical field service work. And in order to get really fluent in all this stuff, he was starting to do actual service calls himself for the robots. And that's just another example of, okay, somebody's gonna figure this out. I'm just gonna do it myself.
Gotta walk the walk, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why I often say, and I mean it, like, we've forgotten more than most people will know how to do this. And this is very complex. Sorry, Pietro. I interrupted.
No.
Go ahead.
No. I was done. I think, yeah, that's the story there.
Alrighty. We got the next portion of this. Do we want to talk or share a little bit on the deployment side, or Grafana, or some RBiz, or what you
I can say, as the deployment process has evolved over the last 5 years I've been with the company, I could say that we're able to now scale up and actually deploy more robots than we were previously, at record time. Because really, for example, you spoke about audio. I mean, our audio has never been so robust. And as a deployment engineer, that's, the best thing ever, because we have to spend less time debugging audio issues. And, also now that we have a really strong QA team, when we actually get the robot on site and do our job, we rarely have to, debug or send a service tech out to fix issues and things. So it's this whole dynamic fleet maintenance thing that we have going on seems to be working pretty well.
Rinse and repeat.
Yep.
Excellent.
All right. Does anyone else want to share a screen? No? All right.
Alrighty. Nick, did you have anything else to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, since you brought up Grafana, and Ronnie brought up software updates, I can talk a bit to those. So, so for software updates, our audience might, understand what a cell phone software update looks like, or a laptop upgrade looks like. Usually, I don't know about you guys, but I kind of dread those updates. I see
Why? Is something gonna
the
break?
Windows logo, and it's always gonna break something. Most of those, are security updates. Rarely these days are you getting some feature added to your laptop or your cell phone that excites you. Maybe if you have a Tesla, you get an exciting update once in a while. But here at Knightscope, we do have those security updates. We have reliability updates, but we have a lot of feature updates, things to get people excited, and we have a lot more potential, especially with the pace that AI is going at right now. So, right now systems are capable, or I guess historically, security systems, it's cheap to throw up a camera somewhere, but people kind of realized, well, is anyone actually watching it? It's cheap to throw the camera up there, but expensive to pay someone 24 hours to watch it. So with where we're at with AI, you know, you can now have an AI system watch that and draw a little bounding box around anything of interest, a person, license plate, and that's pretty good. It can take you right to the spot in the footage, so you don't have to go watch that historical video. You can just jump right to it. But that also opens the door for these real-time alerts. You can set alerts based on, you know, people you don't want on premise, license plates you don't want on premise, and those are features that Knightscope has right now, that we're working on improving over the air software updates all the time. But I'm really excited for some of these future upgrades that, you know, we're building the robots to have the hardware to run, you know, AI models well into the future. You know, things are going fast, but we've future-proofed things. So, you know, it's hard to say exactly what, you know, it'll look like in 5-10 years, but I imagine more and more getting to feel kind of like Tony Stark when you're interacting with it, and, you know, you're talking to your security system, saying, you know, in English, you can say, you know, someone broke in yesterday, who was it? And the system can, you know, say, you know, searching for people yesterday, can you give additional details? And you could say, well, you know, I think it was a male wearing a red jacket, and then it'll show you, you know, pop up right there all the relevant footage and give you all the relevant details, and you could also configure the alerts, you know, just by saying in English, you know, can you set some alerts for this weekend? Do we have an event going on? Or can you remove those alerts that we already set up? And you'll be able to interact with it in a more intuitive way and configure your security system, you know, with something that feels more like Jarvis or or something like that. And all of it is possible with over-the-air software updates.
It's all possible, and we'll cover this later in the week, but it's just people cashing time. There's not we don't know how to get from A to B or X to Y, or we don't know how to do that. It's all actually, crazy enough, technically achievable. And that wasn't the case, you know, 5, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Just to get a robot to autonomously patrol on its own 24 hours in a row, like, was a little bit of a feat, including autonomously recharging. Now we just, like, we take it for granted. And we have machines running all across the country that we can, I shouldn't tell this story. I just remember, I think Daniel may have been around, Ronnie, you might have been around. So obviously, one of the ways to prevent any cyber attacks or IP theft or anything like that, one of the great components of machine as a service is we own all the assets, and these are, you know, subscription based. So we had a particular, I won't name them, particular client back in the day where we had a good amount of robots that were under their contract, and they just decided to just kind of not pay the bill. And then, you know, we'd follow up and it's like, hey, you know, you need to pay your bill. Yeah. And you need to pay your bill. I mean, this went on for a while. It wasn't like, you know, a day or two. We're months into it. It's like, okay. So we decided one day, like, you know what? We'll just park all the robots nationwide. Bill got paid, right? And
Immediately.
But you think about the concept of being able to do that, you know, like just having one robot, like, in a laboratory and worried about it, is it going to charge or whatever, but then having the technical ability to do something, you know, that's technically relatively simple but was never possible or thought of before, gets really interesting. And then building on what Nick's talking about is just, you know, I'm not sure exactly what it's going to look like, but I can tell you a couple of things. It's going to be faster, better, cheaper, safer, and robots will be everywhere. Anyone who thinks that, like, this is not happening, you're going for a rude awakening. Like, the amount of robots that are going to be out in the field, in the coming years is going to get to a tipping point where it's going to be weird not to have one. Like, you decided to not pay the $7 an hour to better secure your facility, like, you're the outlier. I don't know when that tipping point might be, but now that we've got the technology working, we're scaling up, we've improved all our processes and everything else. Sure, it's been a very lengthy phase one, kind of large scale proof of concept across the country, but this is happening. And I think you'll see here that, you know, we've got the team to actually execute, which is really, really exciting. So any last parting words before we wrap up the how to manage or handle machines and network, Ronnie?
You know, you gotta be patient, but I would say it helps to have like a fascination with robots. Like, I've always, ever since I was a kid, I was fascinated with robots. And Knightscope, I mean, they have a mission to help make the United States of America the safest country on earth. Like, when I heard that, I wanted to be a part of that. And then, you know, I think I like being around some robots more than I like being around some humans I know. So, but other than that, nothing to add.
We're gonna clip that part out, and on social media that goes.
Great.
Nick, any parting words for the audience?
I guess to expand on what Ronnie said, I went into a career in robotics, and I went through, you know, I'm a technologist. I love working with technology, but I went through a slump right out of college. You know, you read articles on robots, and they're all negative. You know, reporters looking for a story. You know, whether it's taking jobs or whether it's the robot's going to become Terminator. But then you meet actual people who interact with the robots, and I've never met a person who doesn't smile when they see the robot, especially kids. Yeah. Immediately kids will start playing with the robot. My own daughter, you know, I had to drag her away from the robot. You know, she goes, "No, I want to play with it more." And I said, "No, we gotta go." So yeah, it's a weird dichotomy. It's up and down, but it's been overwhelmingly positive when it's real people in person with the robots, and I like working on that interaction, making that positive, doing funny voices, you know, doing sound effects, you know, that makes the job worth it.
Oh, there's got a lot more fun to be had. Pietro?
Well, maybe like a concluding remark on what I was mentioning earlier about the complexity of the product that we create, the unique combination of things. Like, on one end, sure, we know how to manage servers, but as engineers, as technicians, we know less how to manage servers when they're moving, when they are connected over Wi-Fi, when they are getting rain on. And
Hey, Bill, stop
thing
picking
what
on my
really
kid.
is
When they come out
special
there,
about Knightscope is that
probably have to choke
we
you a little bit.
get to do those things. Maybe with all the issues, certainly with all the issues that we have, but the team that is making that happen is learning something, is learning how to put together those technology pieces, those ability to sell even the product. I mean, all these aspects are really the know-how that Knightscope is creating along with the robots. And that's, I don't know what the currency of that, probably there is a currency of that, but that's definitely like a little treasure, I think, that it's held in the Knightscope team.
All right, that's awesome. DJC, you want to take us out?
Yeah, you know, it's an honor to be part of this journey. It's an honor to work around such intelligent people, and you know, hopefully for forever. But with the rate that Nick and Pietro are going, and I might not even have a role here anymore because the robots might deploy themselves.
Oh, no.
So I better adapt.
They will deploy you.
But yeah, no, it's great, and it's nice to go back and through time and talk about this stuff. So thank you.
Well, thank all four of you for all the crazy amount of effort all of you put in to continue to get Knightscope to grow despite all the difficulties, despite all the people throwing rocks at us, putting banana peels in our way. This team is relentless and extremely bright and driven. So I'm honored to have a chance to work with all of you, and I'm really excited about our future. And thanks for giving a little bit of insight to our friends on Wall Street as to all things Knightscope. All right, and we're off to our next session. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, one.
All right. Hey, Tyler, man. So I was thinking about this section. It's called manufacturing machines. It's like, what does that mean? Does that mean how we manufacture the machines, or the manufacturing tools to make the machines, or something else?
Some
So
Terminator,
hopefully you're going to clear it up today for us.
some Terminator machines making machines, right?
There you go.
No,
Tyler McFalls, good to see you. You're our director of manufacturing. Get to see all things production at 3 facilities.
That's correct.
You got some quality stuff that you have to manage, logistics, operations, and I think as a side hobby, you've been on the engineering team too.
Lots of engineering, lots of hats, but I wouldn't want it any other way, honestly. It's what I'm used to. So
you live in Silicon Valley. There's tons of places that you can work, all kinds of need for talent. Why the heck did you end up at Knightscope?
I would say, all roads seem to have led here. So the biggest thing that's very important to me in a company is being effective and being impactful. So I like to see results, I like to get results, and I like to drive results. So I've really always wanted to be in the tech sector. I started my career in a small machine shop, and always looked up to the tech companies, and I was like, man, that would be super cool, right? Being in the Bay Area, right? Being in Silicon Valley. But there's so few tech companies or Bay Area companies that produce a physical product, and have hardware manufacturing demand. And I think that Knightscope is a great blend of that.
It's funny, it's called Silicon Valley, right? Should be emphasis on silicon. Like, it's actually started as really focused on hardware related stuff. So you're in a machine shop. So how are things different now? Like, what's the pace? Talk us through a day in the life of a director of manufacturing at Knightscope.
Oh man. So things are quite different. Being in a machine shop, it was small and lean, which taught me a lot of those things. Taught me how to be really effective, really small, really lean, think on my feet, have to engineer on the go all the time. Knightscope is different from that, but also the same from that. So I have to do all those things on a daily basis. You have to be quick on your feet, you have to engineer, and you have to have solutions. The difference here is it's not just making a couple of components, one machine's focusing on one component. Now it's tons of different components, but all at once, and they all have to make sense. The beauty, though, is the fact that we get to make volume. So I get to make the same thing over and over and over again, and just make it better. That's the biggest thing. So that's what's really, really wonderful about it.
So can we deep dive that a little bit for the audience? Like, can you speak to the complexity of the engineering and manufacturing and servicing? I think a lot of folks don't understand that it takes a lot to actually get all this stuff built and running 24/7. What does that look like from your end? Like, what's a day in the life of Tyler?
So the cool part about Knightscope is we have so many products, or so many deployments right now. I think you have a statistic, like hundreds of thousands or millions of hours of runtime right now. So with that, in my opinion, that is all a data point, and that gives us a ton of data, right? So all of our machines are out there with clients getting real hours, and that informs engineering. And because every day something's going to break, right? When you put something out in the world, something's going to happen. So every day that gives us an opportunity to be better and to fix these things, that informs our engineering, and therefore through engineering, we get to come up with solutions. Those solutions then go straight into manufacturing. So every day we're on calls and we're discussing what's happening out in the field, what we can do to be better. Engineering makes improvements, and that flows right down into manufacturing. And it can be as quick as within hours. I mean, it's something that happens overnight. It's a rush or a relatively small fix. We can make that improvement and get that implemented into manufacturing on the very next build in the same day. So that's pretty much the outline of my day, I guess, is just tackling that.
But that's very different than like, you know, where I came from, building a car, right? You'd spend, I don't know, $1.6 billion or $2 billion, you know, spend 4 years, I don't know, probably build 400 prototypes with 400 people on the team. And then it's not exactly correct, but you're rinsing and repeating the same engineering build or release or SKU over and over and over again. In our case, because we're continuing to iterate, and I think we're coming up nearing 3 million hours in operation.
Wow.
So, you know, we've learned a thing or two. And I think that's one of the things that's a little bit crazy for this is if you drove your car 24/7 for 30 days, like, you might need some service. And I think people don't do this math, depending on how fast you're going. If you did that with your car, I think somewhere in the 6 to 12 month range, depending how fast you're going, you literally void the entire automaker's warranty. And we need to keep all this stuff running across the country 24/7, in the rain, at night, in the heat, in the desert, in the fog, in the whatever. And that gets us a lot of quote unquote feedback from the field that we need to keep addressing. So life's pretty simple for you then. You got, you know, just twiddling your thumbs, you're all good.
Easy as pie. Yep, no big deal. So what's the old saying is it's only a problem, so all we need is a solution, right? So it's that simple. So that's what we do every day. Yeah, 3 million hours, right? Yes, like you said, the uptime is insane, and the data that we have is mind-boggling. So we get to use that, and we get to implement that every day. You know, we're a machine as a service, and so when something happens, the client's, you know, quick to point that out because they want their machine uptime. They rely on us to provide our service all the time, and that's what they're paying for. And that's my goal, is to continue to improve so that we have the best uptime we can get. So, and like I said, nothing better than bringing data in from the field, making those changes and getting that implemented so that everything forward is always getting better and better and better.
So one huge change we're making as you've started to implement, you know, we used to make these machines kind of, I don't know, one at a time. You had a highly specialized technician that was fluent in pretty much everything and could build one machine in, I don't know, 100 hours, 120 hours. It's like one a week, a kind of very painful process. And now you've been instrumental in changing that to more of a normal assembly line process. Can you help the audience understand what it took to do that? And how it's going?
So it's going really well. We're very happy to report a significant increase in our production efficiencies. So I would like to say right now, on the magnitude of threefold. We were, yes, like you said, building. We had one specialized technician who was building one machine all the way through. So that means that they had to be an expert of the motors. They had to be an expert of the wheels and the chassis and the computers and the bodywork and the everything, right? That's fine, and that can work in some industries, but that's not what the Toyota way would tell you, right? So that's not what Lean or Six Sigma would recommend. And so we do want to move away from that. That works good in low volume in some instances, but we need to scale up and ramp up for production. And so I've done the best that I can to implement a new theory, which is to bring things in sort of like modules or sub-assemblies. And so our guys can focus on, and each person gets a specific part of the build process, and I let them pick. So they each got to pick what they wanted to be good in, and there's definitely crossover still, but they get to pick what they want, and they get to specialize in that. So one group of guys or folks will have the bodies, another will have electronics, and others will have chassis, and so they get to just get really specialized on that. And what that does then is not only does it speed up our build time, because they're trying to push it over, and get it done and push it over. And so we can streamline that. So that creates almost a constant flow of machines for our QA process. But also, too, what that does is it allows them to be highly specialized in their segment. And so they can identify deviations and they can specialize in what they're doing and go much faster, better than anybody else. So instead of being a jack of all trades, a little bit about everything, now about we know a lot about a little bit less. But don't get me wrong, they're very good and they can respond to anything at any time, any one of them. And they're still highly trained.
I'm gonna put you on the spot. We hit a
oh boy
set a target. We set a target for less than 20 hours a machine. You think we can hit that this year?
I think we can hit that this year. Yep. I'll take a couple more quarters to get to that target, but I think we're getting quite close to that. I would say I have to pull the latest hours, but I would say we for sure cut the 100 to 120-ish into about half, if not even better. Like I said, I think we've been able to increase it by about threefold at this point.
So there's a little bit of a boring topic for some, but this I think illustrates the need. Is now that you've got a more of assembly process, what's the documentation look like? You have a lot more control, I think, with the engineering team. It's documentation on the engineering release, it's the assembly process, and then I think one huge change was the QA process was, hey, stop building a whole machine and waiting to the end to do all the testing and figure out the supplier shipped us the wrong part, we have the wrong firmware, etc. So maybe speak to a little bit of details on the actual build process.
Sure. So as we go through the process, we've implemented some paperwork. So they do have a traveler. They had travelers in the past, but we've just made them a lot more detailed. So I've implemented the new travelers, and with that, the guys are documenting the serial numbers and any sort of other specific details on just about every component that we're putting into each machine. So we're creating a base layer of traceability, which wasn't always there at Knightscope. I think the company is shifting. And so with the shift, with the increase in volume in production, we need that traceability because we need to know exactly which component's going into which robot. So we've turned on, or we've detailed out our travelers, and the guys are documenting all the serial components or serial numbers of all the components on the travelers. They also have specific work instructions. So they have a technical technical work instruction. They also have a simplified version that I spent most of last summer in the fall with a very awesome team player and intern who we've transitioned to full-time, and so he's honed in on all of our work instructions, and they look really good. So now when we do get new teammates, they can pretty much be handed a work instruction and almost jump in right away. So that's been really helpful. After the travelers go through and follow the production process, at the bottom of the traveler, there's a large portion for post-production checks. So we've trained our production folks to then therefore bring the machine online and go through and do a brief run through of tests. And so they're sending messages to the machine and they're pinging components and they're looking for a response. So if they come back with all green checks on the ping test, it passes post-production and it gets a green stamp, and then it goes over to QA. And so that shortens the QA time tremendously, because in the past, QA would have to do that once they got a machine. And if a wire was wrong or something wasn't even online, we wouldn't know that for weeks later, maybe even months later, by the time it got through the QA backlog. So we're able to identify that up front and shorten the QA time, also improve our production, because then that gives you instant feedback. The team then knows, hey, I messed this up and I got to fix it, and they're going to fix that next time. So the best place to learn is, live and in person with hands-on. So as soon as you possibly can, as early as you possibly can, super helpful.
So let's pick out a scab. How's the IT setup for manufacturing going for you?
It's not bad. So we've created a QA test bench. So we kind of took a machine and all the internal components and we broke it down and we set it on a test bench. And so we're able to independently check every component. That was a little bit of an IT exercise, getting us to have a donor machine, a donor QA test bench. But it's working out. We're going to definitely get some more IT and technology coming through here. What I'd like to do next is I'd like to implement barcoding and scanning for capturing all these serial numbers, and it's going to integrate with our travelers, and it's going to start up front at the inventory, shipping, receiving, logistics area. And so that then can be tracked all the way through to the process where the machine gets deployed and even in service. So when they need a new part, scan them a new part, bring the old one in, scan it in, all these things. Just always trying to get better, always trying to up our tech.
All the blocking and tackling required to scale up, which is actually kind of exciting. Instead of just doing one a week. I think if all goes well, it should be 5 a week through production, QA, and shipping out the door. So I have some views on contract manufacturing, and I've had a lot of investors like, well, why don't you just outsource this to China or Mexico somewhere? And I'm like, oh, so you want a Shenzhen Chinese-made surveillance robot at the Pentagon? Have thought this through, have you? Yeah. But I think you've got some views. If you want to share yours, and then I can share mine, and maybe
Sure.
The audience will learn something.
Sure. So the beginning, more than half of my career at this point was, like I said, spent at a machine shop. So I've experienced being a first, second, third tier supplier to end users. And so I can say, from being on the flip side of the coin, contract manufacturing definitely has its advantages. It goes back to that notion that we don't need to be average at everything. Let's be really good at our specific subset. Our specific subset, in my opinion, is our technology and what makes us special. So we don't need to be experts at motors and wheels and chassis and things like that. Let's be really good at our tech. So we've implemented some things, and we're investigating more of how to partner with key manufacturers and other partners so that they can bring in, or we can do some pre-built sub-assemblies. And so we call them kind of modules. And so our team can focus on putting those together, right? So that speeds up everything all across the board. Plus that also gives me one throat to choke when something goes wrong. So it puts us in a position now to lean on our suppliers for very strict quality standards, shorter lead times, competitive pricing, all these things. And we get to be the boss. We get to set what that looks like. And lucky for us, that's why it's good to farm it out, is because they're good at what they do. And there's other people who are also very specialized and good at that. So we can create a competition there, which overall benefits us. It also it provides us the ability to scale up, ramp up right? So if we give them our annual run rates or our forecast, they get the opportunity to scale that up for us. Doesn't tie up as much cash and things like that for us, which is always good for the C-suite, and it gives us some reaction. On the flip side of that, like you said, you do have to watch where and how they're made. So we need to have open communication with them, and we need to be able to have the communication flow forwards and backwards, not just us being, a bully or a boss. It's good for them to tell us, hey, I think we can do this different. Absolutely, you're right. Let's do it different. Because if they have an idea that can ultimately make things go faster, cheaper, better, that helps us in the long run. So it's very good to have that open communication forwards and backwards. The other issue, and so that can be a thing where that can limit you. If neither party is communicating properly, that can harm things, which we don't want. So we have to watch that. The other thing you want to watch too, is it kind of comes back to that, is it can, because they're going to build volume, because they're going to try to be efficient as well, it can kind of limit your reaction rate, because they're going to go set aside and they're going to try to build extras. Now, if we discover an issue or we want to come up with a new design, if we're prototyping something, they're going to be much less reactive than we are. So it kind of goes back to that whole reason for me loving this and being here is us being able to be reactive and make those fixes quickly. So again, you just have to position yourself with the right person and allow them to communicate to you, you communicate to them, and as long as they have a good attitude and everybody's happy, can really, really conquer the world. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think I think I end up at the same place you concluded, maybe from a different perspective. Like if I look at, Foxconn or Sanmina, or back in the auto industry and Roush or Magna, like in general, most of them are really good at relatively high volume, especially for the electronics folks. High volume for stuff that doesn't move and is usually used indoors is a specialty.
Yep.
And in our case, we're outdoors, we move, and they're kind of big.
Yep.
So not always, and we're lower volume, so not always a good fit. And what's funny, when I worked for Ford Motor Company, helped set up a plant for Ford of Brazil, and it ends up looking frankly, like Knightscope. In a lot of cases, we had the suppliers do all the raw material conversion, hold the in-process inventory on their books, and the automaker or Knightscope is the light industrial assembler, and integrator and test before everything goes out. And so it's funny to go how life is, just kind of go run in a circle, and end up in a very similar spot where we can leverage a lot of the contract manufacturing, not for the entire thing, but for specific things. Like you said, we're a technology company, we need to focus on the key items where we can add value, and have our supplier friends and partners help us with the balance. And I think the results are showing, and so I'm excited to see how the end of the year ends up looking.
There a lot of big things coming. I can tell you that's for sure. So
I've been picking on you for the longest time. So we're gonna 3D print the whole machine.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, sure. No, I'm a big fan of 3D printing. I love 3D printing. The machinist in me is dying. The machinist in me is dying. I love 3D printing. I think I'm open to that for a lot of components. Definitely has its place, has its time and place. I am of the mindset that, and I hold this throughout everything all the time in this building and in this position, is that everything is up for consideration. So I think we should always look at every component on a regular basis and think to ourselves, is this the right way to make this? Should we try something else? Can we make this different? Can we simplify, right?
Or delete. Best part is no part.
Yeah, exactly. Best part is nothing.
No weight, no cost, no inventory, no audit trail, no anything.
It's just all virtual, Bluetooth. So like I said, no, the machinist in me, the traditional manufacturer in me is dying, right? Because I'm like, because 3D printing lends itself, it dominates when you have crazy shapes, crazy surfaces, features that are unreachable or something like that. Like I said, in traditional manufacturing. So that's where 3D printing is incredible. It's very fast, it's very reactive. You can go CAD to part super quickly. Huge fan. I think it works in a lot of areas. I just want to take that right now. I think Knightscope needs to take that and bridge that to high volume. So we can totally 3D print. I'm down for 3D printing. I also want to get to volume because I want to push machines out. So I'm going to try to always simplify and get to volume. And 3D printing does have volume. I understand that there's you build a cake and you can nest everything and it looks beautiful. I also think too, if we're in such a position that we have no other option but 3D printing, though, we've painted ourselves into a corner. So I never want to do that. I always want to make sure that I have options. And again, doing that, it just means always looking at things and saying, how can we do this better? How can we do this simpler, right? But I'm going to visit a 3D printing partner here shortly. So I'm looking forward to that and see what we can do.
All right. So I'm looking forward to you maintaining all that equipment inside of KHQ.
We'll smash it in.
All right, so now to get you in trouble, how's the new CFO doing?
Ooh, man, Apoorv, that guy's awesome. He's super cool. So if I could think about Apoorv in a brief phrase, I would just say Apoorv gets it. So we're in such a unique position, again, being in Silicon Valley, being a tech company, but also a tech company that has hardware manufacturing demands. Very rare. Which has allowed me to be here. Kind of rare, kind of crazy. Apoorv, also very rare. So you have to get it. You have to understand that we're constantly developing. We have to constantly develop, but we also have to build a product and a product of volume. And so I love it because he approaches everything with a show me why. Okay, I understand. Let's do it. And the finance department will make it happen. And so he's different. He's not an operations CFO. He's not going to say that I have to stick to this rigid book of do this, do this, do this. He's not an accounting CFO where he locks himself in a room and just stares at sheets all day and spreadsheets. He's a doer CFO. He is more than happy to listen to manufacturing, production, engineering, everything. And again, he'll say, show me why, I understand, let's do it, and finance will help you make it happen. So he gets it.
It's crazy for me because I've had a lot of CFOs in my career. And most of the time I'm the renegade comes up with hey, here's a crazy idea, let's go do this. Or what do you think of this, path or some novel thing to go do or experiment or whatever. And usually it's, no, Bill, don't do that. No, too much risk. No, that's a bad idea. No, we should focus on X, Y, or Z. And Apoorv is dangerous because I go to him like, hey, what do you think of this crazy idea? He's like, that's brilliant. That's a great idea. We should do that. And here's 3 more ideas.
Yeah, actually, let's do this.
To make it crazier. Okay, this is going to be a fun decade.
Yeah, he's a character.
Yeah, he's so it's been good to have him on board. It's a breath of fresh air.
He gets it. I don't even know what to say. Like he's unique. You're unique. He's unique. I'm kind of weird, so I guess that's unique.
Trouble's brewing.
Yep, it's a storm.
All right, so let's wrap up with a couple more questions.
Sure.
So you told me a few times that you love working at Knightscope. And it's obvious you meant it. So what exactly makes you feel that way? Like we have a lot of teammates that are extremely passionate about what we do and they have, different motivations. Some of it's a technology, some of it's a patriotic streak, some of it's just pure financial opportunity. And some of it's, working with a bunch of crazy people. But kind of what makes you feel that way?
So I love being impactful and effective, right? Well, leadership is a big thing. So not only did I identify that I believe you're a very good leader, you're very open and honest with me, especially, straight away and, my final interview, right? So you were an open book, which meant a lot. Also meant that there was a lot of opportunity. So I saw that, and that meant that I could be impactful. I like to be effective and impactful. I also like leading. So we've created such a connection such that you've allowed me to be a leader. And so that's really where I thrive. And it just allows me to be who I am. Again, be a leader and be effective. So a change that I decide to make today goes into effect every minute of every day. So we hang up from this, I go out to the floor, let's see what's going on, make the changes, implement the changes, and it goes right into the next robot. It might even happen in minutes. It might go into that robot, might go into the next set of robots, everything. And so that to me is huge because I'm always looking for improvement. I'm always looking for growth. And so having that sort of direct impact is just, you can't put a value on that. You can't. And so I thoroughly love being here. And the team is fantastic. I love the guys here. I love the culture that we have. And I think they'd say the same. So so hopefully
I should interview him next.
You should interview him next. Gladly. We'll take the camera over there. So
all right. So let's
yeah.
wrap it up with,
sure.
From a manufacturing perspective, what should investors expect in the, coming weeks, months, years, and the future of Knightscope from your perspective?
From my perspective and from a manufacturing input, we're going to do everything we can to drive efficiency. So we need to build up scale and volume, and with that comes inherent sort of wastes. I want to do everything I can to to minimize the waste or not allow waste, right? Anybody can say that, but it's not possible. And minimize waste as much as possible. So we're going to try to grow with a very lean and mean team. And so we need to be super effective. And so that means that I have to do all my due diligence up front to make sure that the manufacturing process is ironed out as best as possible and that we can grow while remaining super lean and super effective. So biggest thing is we're just going to drive efficiencies. We're going to continue to improve our processes. We're going to scale up the volume, and the rest will take care of itself. Really, I mean those are the couple ingredients that you need. So, awesome. I would say as an investor, personal investor, big whales, investors out there, I don't want to be another Bay Area company where they throw money at stuff to get bigger. I want to make sure that every dollar that gets spent here, every decision that we make that leads to spending dollars is going to be absolutely maximized and capitalized to the most effect, because again, I'm a personal investor, not only with my hours, but with my own money. And so I want to make sure that that goes to the best use. And that means I don't want it going to waste. I don't want it going to, mountains of scrap. I want to put out a good product. And so that's the goal. That's exactly what the future of Knightscope holds as long as I'm here.
Well, that's awesome. And I love that you're betting on Knightscope because I'm betting on the team, and that includes you. So thanks for everything you've done thus far. And I know the future is going to be really bright, and we're going to be churning out machines like crazy. So
we certainly
good to
are.
see you. Thanks for doing this. And onwards to the rest of Innovation Week.
Absolutely. Thank you.